I lost half of it. Anyhow, people read it and love it. I found objects. Testing 1. Testing 1, testing 2. Just to put a little bug in everybody's ear, I'm going to put a group order in tomorrow for our Loveland Boys t-shirts that are untoward and possibly illegal t-shirt. And we have women's and men's sizes, so please let me know if you want to get on the group order. It'll be a little bit cheaper that way. I didn't get my copy, David. 1 second. Oh, I can grab it. 20 seconds. Thank you, everybody. Good? Thank you. I'm going to start. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Okay, well, thank you all for coming. We are going to have a little bit different kind of conversation tonight than we've hosted in the past. We try to listen to the community conversation that's out there in the ether. And the unhoused community, no matter where you fall in the discussion, is at the front of a lot of people's minds. And so when I think of, and I think when a lot of the people think of who is working with and who is at the front lines with the unhoused community, I think of Allison Hade. So I invited Allison and asked her to be a part of the conversation since she knows a lot more about the situation than I do. And then we have, I'm grateful for a couple different people that have lived experience being unhoused, that are going to be here to not only give their perspective, but also answer questions. So please feel free. Real quick, Shane, do you want to invite Ron Weinberg to come in? He's taking pictures from outside. Maybe he wants to join us. We can all wave. Hi, Ron! Sorry. Did he just take off? No, he's coming. Hi there, welcome. So please feel free with Allison and with our other community members that are going to be up here giving their stories. Please just raise your hand, ask questions, be respectful, all of that, okay? And once again, if you want in on the group order of the t-shirts, let me know. And support Black and Blues, buy a mocktail or a cocktail. They give us this space for free and are always so generous with their time and energy, so. Thank you. Thank you all. And we're gonna start with, you all know Jessica Schneider. We're gonna start with Jessica. And she is gonna tell a little bit about her story. So thanks, Jess. Thank you for inviting me to tell a little bit of my story, Amanda. I lost half of it on the way here. So this will be fun. I'll try to get to the point. And it starts with everyone has a story. And some of the work I have done in the past and in the present is helping people, particularly like refugees and immigrants and people living with mental health illnesses that have gotten treatment and wanted to like spread the word that treatment can work and people can recover. So we work on storytelling together. And I always say to them, every one of us is a library of stories and experiences, right? And the trick, when you're speaking to a group, is to not just pick out the book that is going to connect with that group, but then whittle that book down into a pamphlet, which is hard, right? Because one thing leads to another, and we're all a product of rich experiences and causes and effects. So, anywho, I ran into that problem myself when Amanda was like, "Hey, you want to share your story about being unhoused for a little bit?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, which part? So, try to give something here. Scene, it's June 2017.
I had filed for divorce. My son wasn't yet 2, and we are on the 4th floor of an apartment complex off Colfax Avenue in Denver. And I was trying to feed him dinner and like normalize the situation. There was no furniture. I had food for him and his books, and I stayed up until 2 a.m. the night before, carrying all this stuff in like this crib I had bought off Craigslist the night before, up 4 stories because the elevator was broken. And I was very tired, but I was like, my heart was broken and breaking, but I had to be mom, right? I had to make this like a normal, abnormal situation. So I'm doing my best. And the woman who had graciously, like a week before, said, hey, I have this empty apartment. You guys can stay there for free. I was like, wow. So I took her up on it, and she entered her apartment at that point and said that she had been having second thoughts about whether or not we should be there. And that I could maybe just decide to squat there. And maybe my baby would fall off the balcony and I would sue her for that. And I remember just sitting there speechless with like tears running down my face. And, 2 weeks before, I was a homeowner, I was a business owner, I had staff, I had interns, I was a nonprofit director, I was a community volunteer. I was a good mom, I've been married for 12 years. And I just will never forget how quickly my trustability and like the ability for people to trust me just disappeared. Anyway, that stuck with me. So, yeah, that sucked. So I planned to get out of there as soon as I could, because I realized that I no longer had control over my safety and stability and the comfort of my son, and that was very scary. So we moved from cat sit to cat sit. I was still working full time and moving us everywhere, and it was a lot. Thankfully, my son was so young, he doesn't remember any of this. And we kept it cool, so I don't think he was traumatized by the situation, but I was. So anyway, we applied for houses. If you don't like me, you can blame this lady, because Amanda was one of the people that reached out and said, you and Daniel can stay at my house. And those were always wonderful respites. We would eat together and grill out, and I could hear the crickets, and it wasn't on Colfax Avenue, and my son was safe and happy. And after a period of time, Daniel and I looked around. Actually, we were attending Pastels on 5th for Alternatives to Violence. And I went there with Daniel for the first time, and I thought, what if we lived here? Like, could we live here? And so I started applying for houses, looking for houses and applying for loans and whatnot. And one after another, we were outbid by cash offers from corporations from outside of town. And that happened 5 or 6 times. And that was in 2017. We would not have been able to land here now. There's absolutely no way. Eventually, I toured another house and went back to Denver, and I got my kid to bed, and milk and books, and he's sleeping finally. And I got an email from my realtor, and she said, "You're under contract." And I was like, whew. But I wasn't even happy because I had no energy left to be happy or relieved. I was kind of in a traumatic space, and my next thought was like, okay, what's next? I had no joy, which is crazy for me to consider now. And the next thing I needed was earnest money. And earnest money is a lot of money. And I didn't have any money. And I'm not a religious person personally, but I have to say, like, by the grace of God, I reached out to a friend. I was like, I don't know what to do. He said, when do you need the money? I said, now. And he brought me an envelope full of cash for earnest money. And I went straight to the bank and I put it down. It took me 2.5 years to pay him back, but I did pay him back. And we settled in Loveland in our house that we're still in. And I'm so glad we're here, and I will always be grateful to this community for being here. So we were lucky. We were lucky to have people like that, like Amanda and like my friend, and so many others. And not everyone has that. So what everyone does have is the possibility that due to a job loss, a tragedy, an illness, abuse at home, everything that we think we have can dissolve in an instant. As one of my favorite poets puts it, like salt in a weakened broth. And I just wanted to set the tone of this conversation with my story. All of our stories are different, and we are all libraries. But a few things I just want to kind of drive home. As we all know, housing in northern Colorado is increasingly unavailable and out of reach. I'm going to say that is not the fault of the individual doing their best to maintain stable housing. It's a systemic issue, and we need to address the systems. I believe in housing first because of my experience. When you are moving and moving and moving, you don't have time to grow or give back or achieve. Another common fallacy I hear, on social media, I'm sure no one in here would ever say anything like this, but this attribution that, people who are unhoused are somehow other. They're different than us. And this is not scientific, but I'm gonna go so far as to say that might be a projection of our fear because we don't want that to ever happen to us. And I think we need to consider that whole thought. Thanks, Allison. What privilege that I had before to think that because I had worked so hard and was a good person who gave back to my community that would never happen to me. What happened to me, and it had nothing to do with how good of a person I was. And finally, I want to challenge everyone here as you listened and have these conversations. If you hear people talking about being afraid of unhoused people or saying, I can't go downtown because I'm afraid or whatnot, just to consider as long as you have a door to lock and a place to put your toothbrush dependably, you're in pretty good shape. And at least I try to count my blessings. And I ask all of us to challenge other people in our lives who, attribute someone being unhoused due to their perceived failings as opposed to the failings of our systems. And we can hold our systems accountable and make things, I think, better for people who are unhoused and even better, prevent people from being unhoused. So thank you for listening. I appreciate you. I really do not like public speaking. I'm sorry if I went on too long. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. The point of having Jessica start, I think, for me, and when I was talking to her, it was to show that the unhoused community looks different than you can even imagine. With some of the volunteer work I've done in the community over the years, there's more children now that are unhoused. And just because they're not sleeping right out here on the sidewalk and they are sleeping in cars or couch surfing or whatever, that doesn't mean that they're not unhoused and they're not experiencing trauma from the instability of living an unstable life in their formative years. So it looks different all over. So the next person that I asked to just give us a little bit of a peek into their experience is Shane Ritter.
Thank you, Amanda. I want to thank the Loveland Voice for doing what they're doing in our community. It's powerful and it's important and it's crucial. I want to thank you all for being here and anyone who's watching. Thank you for wanting to be a part of this conversation. 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah. It's a big story, but I will do my best to parse it down to what's important to me and what I feel is most important to share. I will say that my story is that I was not only unhoused, but I was homeless. There's a difference. A house is just a structure. I build them now and remodel them, right? A home is what happens after I leave and life starts happening in the shell that I create, right? So I have experienced both. I have experienced being unhoused at many different levels, right? I like to call some of my unhoused experience unhoused light. And I have been truly destitute and on the streets with nowhere to be. My story is interwoven with the story of addiction and recovery. I think by societal metrics, for many years I was not a good person, but I was still me. I was suffering, right? And so part of what I'll share tonight is about addiction, right? And that it is a disease, it is not a choice, it is not a lack of willpower, and all of these misconceptions that create a really heavy stigma in our society around what an addict is, who an addict is. I look around the room, there's many of you who know me now. Well, that was still me while I was suffering in the deepest throes of addiction, but the light was eclipsed, right? And I could sit here for 45 minutes like I do frequently and share my story of addiction, but we don't have that sort of time for this, and it's not about me. I will say this, that addiction is what led to me being truly destitute and alone and homeless while being unhoused. I did not have any resources, and I did not have anyone left to help me, right? Because I had burned all those bridges. So as much as I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, I could not get clean while on the streets. And I tried, right? And I tried when I had some couch to crash on, right? Some temporary housing situation to get clean. And I couldn't. When I had a place where I knew I would sleep at night, and I knew that a meal was available when I was hungry, that was the stability I needed to A, stop using, right? Abstinence, crucial. I needed to stop using to even have the opportunity to perhaps regain some sanity, right? And recover who I am. And I have chosen a path of recovery, which is different than abstinence. Abstinence is a first step towards a path of recovery, and I'm a big advocate for the path of recovery, abstinence-based recovery. That is what has allowed me to regain myself, right? Recover myself, and then grow past any version of myself I previously knew. But none of that was possible without a place to be. So, you know, when it comes to policy and logistics, there's a very, very simple solution for the unhoused, and that is house them. Period. Meet them where they are, right? We meet people where we are. We provide housing. We provide food assistance, clean drinking water. These are basic human needs, right? Fundamental for everyone. Obviously, the logistics of providing that solution are not so simple, right? But that is the solution. Homelessness, right? Well, that can often be different, because I know my experience in losing myself, right? I had to relearn. I had a business, right? I graduated high school. I went to college. I graduated. I ran a business. I had a home. I had possessions. I was making a very handsome income, right, for a man in his late 20s and early 30s. I lost all that, and by the time I became sort of housed, right, and had the courage to become abstinent and embark on a journey of recovery, I had to relearn how to work, right? And the job that was available to me was concrete labor, $14 an hour, like truly backbreaking work. But I did it, right? It helped get my body back in shape. It taught me humility, right? Which was something I also needed to relearn, because I was insane, right? And had totally lost sight of what humility was. And I began to make a little bit of income, right? Then I had to learn self-sufficiency again. I had to learn what that meant. I also, through my journey, acquired a felony and an eviction and had no credit. Not easy to find someone to rent to you in that situation. But at 9 months clean, and I was actually unhoused again. I was sleeping on a couch because my stint in the sober living facility I was at, which was not full of a whole lot of sobriety and recovery, but I found it there, had been ended, right? And so I was unhoused, found out I was going to be a father, right, when I'd been clean for 9 months. But by a year clean, I did find someone that was willing to rent to me, without a background check and without a credit check. Those are few and far between. And it was nothing luxurious, but it was home. And the story I'll share is, I had worked concrete for like 11 or 12 hours, right? I was exhausted. I came back to my little newly moved into apartment. And by moved in, I mean I was able to afford a new mattress, right? Which was a big deal. And I had a milk crate. And I had been to the thrift store and I had gotten a skillet and a saucepan and a plate and a set of silverware. And I made myself some carne asada tacos, right? And I was sitting on this little milk crate, looking around my empty apartment, eating these tacos, and I was home, overwhelmed with gratitude. My exact thoughts was, I made it. I made it. I heard a lot of wonderful stuff shared by Jessica, right? Much like with addiction, also with our unhoused neighbors, eliminating stigma is so crucial. Human beings, each of you, each of us, right? With a story, a unique story, a novel story. And when we stop seeing that, and we start seeing groups, separate than, other than, we're really missing the point of the human experience, right? I see a lot of heads nodding, and that's beautiful. So speak that loud to fellow community members, right? Don't be shy. That's how we reduce stigma. That's how we start to all see each other as human beings with needs, whatever they may be. And if we can help, we help. And the more people we can get to see past the stigma and see our fellow neighbors wherever they may be, whatever home might be for them, right? As fellow human beings, now I think we really have a chance to start to have, we can start to affect change in policy. And we can start to create new systems, right, that are more equitable. And we can have home, right, collectively. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at Allison and Dan. Can you guys come up together? Do you mind? All right. This is Dan and Allison. Share a microphone, can't you? Yeah. Of course you can. You play nice and share. Okay.
You what? You wouldn't want to get tossed.
want to get banned?
Okay, I'm going to have these two lovely humans introduce themselves real quick. So, Allison?
I'm Allison Haid. I'm a City of Loveland employee in the Community Partnership Office.
Okay, what do you do? What are some of your roles?
So the Community Partnership Office does grant distribution to nonprofits. We have two commissions, the Human Services Commission and the Affordable Housing Commission. We work on issues of affordable housing and trying to bring additional housing into Loveland. And in about 2016, we started working on homelessness as well.
Thank you. Dan?
My name's Dan Ibarra, and the reason I'm up here, I'm not a representative of any of the guests, is what they call them over here, at the shelter, or either one of them, but I do call 137 South Lincoln as my residence and mailing. And there's just things that I would love to bring up between stuff that's going on there, stuff that's going on out here, between not only law enforcement, city workers. One of the main things I want to try to advocate for is residents and the guests over here, which are known as the homeless or unhoused. Because I am at the library a lot, and I read a lot, and I see a lot on some certain websites with a lot of the residents complaining about things, and some of it does have to do with the people that do reside also over here.
Okay. Well, do you want to just go for it?
Well, I guess
he has notes.
I guess I should start with just the story, just like everybody else did. The reason why I'm here.
Can you guys hear him okay?
And wherever Jessica is, your story starts in June of 2017. I did not know that. Mine starts in July of 2017. And it does have to deal with my family. Accidental drowning, my 4-year-old. I was living down in Texas. I'm from northern Colorado. Born in Greeley, raised in Windsor, graduated from Windsor in 1984. Joined the Marine Corps, traveled halfway around the world. For some strange reason, I lived in California for 10 years, lived in Texas for 12, Arizona for a tiny bit, have family in New Mexico. This is my home, right here. Not exactly Loveland, but I love, for some reason, Loveland. Windsor's technically my home. Don't like it anymore. Windsor's totally not the town that I knew back in the day. So, after my son drowned, did the same thing. My wife left me, went back, took my other son. I haven't really seen them in 6 years, but I did the same thing like Jessica. Couch surfed friends, family. Went on a probably close to 6-month binge, drugs, alcohol. I should probably not be alive, probably should be in prison. Besides the tattoos, it looks like I went to prison, got almost every one of them when I was in the Marine Corps, and after. I have a lengthy driving record. Not trying to condone drinking and driving. I have 5 DUIs on my record. People ask me, why am I not in prison? Because Larimer County kind of screwed up. That new, 3 major traffic violations within 7 years, instantly go to prison. I had a DUI in 1999 when I came home on leave, and they tried to hammer me with that rule. I'm like, really? So you say within 7 years, I made the Larimer County Assistant DA look stupid because I said, you said 7 years, these 3. By my calculations, last DUI was 8 years ago. And he just kind of looked stupid, walked out of the room, came back, told me I was absolutely right. And then in 2001, after I got out, got my 5th one. And now, totally clean. Am residing here in town, and would love, I've dealt with this lady right here. I got invited by this lovely young lady back over here to come tonight. And there's some points that I would like to make, try to help that place over there run smoother with her crew, especially with her crew, because her crew is the one that's gonna basically make all the decisions in this town, but also with you guys, any of the residents here. Basically, I'm trying to start some advocate thing between guests, residents of the 2 shelters, and everybody else, because I hate, me being in the military, I hate when things don't run smoothly, and it really bugs me, and I have this tendency. I also did construction, got about 25 years under my belt. And I have this thing, I don't know what it is, but I have to fix things. Whether, could be this mic stand. It could be that stool over there. It could be people's drug problems over here, people's mental health problems, people being unhoused over here. I try to help everybody that comes new over here with services here in town. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time, nobody listens to me. They always think that I'm full of shit. And excuse me for saying that, because I am a Marine and I do cuss a lot, but I'm trying not to right now. Yeah, I drop a lot of F-bombs. It's usually like 20 times in an hour with me. Trying to hold that back, but I'd love to see this stuff work a lot better. I have some ideas that I still need to get going. I've showed them to Aaron. I need to actually get this proposal typed up and so I can give it to this young lady over here and see what she sees. But we've talked a couple times with some things.
Yeah.
And
What's one of the big things?
running how the LRC and the SRF is with the Loveland Resource Center is the one on 137, 300 South Railroad is the SRF, the South Railroad facility where the overnight shelter is, but just the operation of everything to make it run smoother. Not to say anything about her crew over there, stuff doesn't always run. But
Can you just explain a little bit further? What doesn't? Yeah.
Big example, a lot of the issues with the actual building. And one of the issues, the bathrooms and the showers.
He's understating it.
Another big issue is ADA compliance. 'Cause we have some disabled people, older folks that have walkers, but people in wheelchairs. That's the reason why I went to the council meeting just before Aaron got elected. And that's where I spoke with her about some ideas. And there's quite a few more.
Yeah.
The other place.
Same issue.
And yes, and this young lady right here, I know her and I don't know I can't remember if I asked if you were older or younger than me.
It doesn't matter, dear.
Yeah. I'd have to say. Just to be on our good side, but hopefully we can get stuff.
Not relevant.
We can get stuff
that's
going, and so I'm glad I was invited up here.
If you could pick one thing to advocate for your friends and the guests and the residents that you're representing, because I know that you had several people talk to you and say, "Speak for me." What would you say?
There's too many things to say.
Well, it doesn't have to be one. You can go on and on.
The major one is the one that I brought up, the
Okay.
ADA compliance.
Okay. ADA compliance. All right.
And
And that should just be standard, right?
one of the guys that actually brought up that he did not know that there is an ADA compliance board. And I printed out this thing, showed him from the next ADA compliance board meeting was. He went, he actually sat down with Jackie and had a fun time with Jackie.
Of course, Jackie.
And I can't remember who the lady was that had the podcast that was all over the United States, that she's legally blind. So that's
Oh, Penn Street.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And
Yep,
this
after
guy
sight,
is, I'll say his name, William. He's in a wheelchair and he has his dog. He's totally.
Oh, yeah, I know.
He's totally disabled, and he's one of the guys that I love to help. And
So can you explain what the challenge is, Will, your friend
getting into
faces?
the building,
Just can't even get in.
Getting
That's
into
right.
the building is a
Yeah,
challenge for him.
that's
Getting into how it should be the shower.
Yeah.
There is no
All of it.
walk-in, because it should be a walk-in shower,
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
You should be able to go in there just like that, and
Allison, can you explain why you're having problems with the ADA compliance?
I can, absolutely I can. Do you mind if I give a little bit of a history?
Please.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the first thing I want to do is let you know of a couple people who are in the room. First of all, we have the Servant's Heart group over here. I don't know if you've ever met them, but
I haven't met you guys, but I know what you do. Thank you so much.
incredible street outreach,
Yes.
food, making sure people, I have chills,
Thank
making
you
sure
for
people are
coming.
well, checking in on them like nobody's business.
Yeah,
Like
for real.
incredible partners. And then there's nothing in my life that happens without Sandra. So if you don't know Sandra from Homeward Alliance, she is a person who makes things happen. She started at the community kitchen in what year? I don't know. And once I met her, she called me one day and said, so what I'm going to need from you is you need to pick a shift and fill it, and you're going to have to start serving at the community kitchen. I was like, okay, we'll do that. And it was just such an incredible experience, and it really enhanced all of the work that I'd ever done and the thoughts that I'd ever had. And when the city of Loveland completed a strategic plan on homelessness, it was finished in 2019. We decided that we needed a lead agency to take the work further. And then COVID hit, so it took about a year for that to happen. But finally in 2021, we took that to City Council and got it funded. And Sandra's the staff member that makes that happen. So what she does is she spent the last couple of years making sure that all of the organizations that are doing this work are doing it together. That everybody who has their hand in this is working toward a common goal, and that's housing. That the way that we're doing the work is through data. It's all data driven, and that we're measuring what we're doing so we can know where we're coming from and where we're going. And that's all Sandra. So she's the person who's driving this conversation like you wouldn't believe. Next week, we're going to City Council. We'll get an update from Homeward Alliance. We'll get an update from a project that they started, the Homeless Task Force. We're going to talk about zoning for facilities, and we're going to look at a vision statement. You know, in a way, it's too bad that this isn't happening after that, because there's going to be so much information that's given out.
Oh, we're going to be hosting one with Sandra in a couple months.
As
so,
well,
yeah.
you should.
Yes.
10 plus years ago, the homeless services were run by House of Neighborly Services and Angel House.
Mm-hmm.
And Angel House was a separate program from House of Neighborly Services, then they were combined. So that was homeless services for adults and homeless services for families. And that went along for well over a decade. And when the City Council enacted the encampment ban, and we realized that services needed to expand, as close as we could get to 24/7, then House of Neighborly Services realized that they weren't necessarily equipped or able or necessarily interested in running a program that would potentially be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We also got very clear instructions from City Council about what they wanted to see in terms of a shelter, and that included tents. So we had already, the City of Loveland had already been paying for the building at 137 South Lincoln. And as you can imagine, it's not easy to pick a location and have people rise up in gratitude. So we had that location, and so that's the location that we are able to use. If you haven't been there, the building is falling apart at the seams. When it does catch on fire, Sandra and I will be on the phone like, we just call it Thursday. You know, it's really not going to be a surprise if the whole thing just kind of crumbles. It's a very old building that is not set up for that. The South Railroad facility, you know, it's interesting because I was so incredibly afraid of that place and what it would mean to be there and what it would feel like to be there. The one thing that I can say about it that I can appreciate is if there's somebody who can't sleep at night, they have an opportunity to go outside of the tent and sit outside and smoke a cigarette at the bench. And I've been there late at night. Like a lot of shelters, you can't necessarily just walk outside and walk back in, and because you need to contain what it is you're working on. And I've been there at 11 o'clock at night and seen people outside, and I really had a true appreciation for what that does allow people to do. Which isn't to say that I think it's a great solution, but that one aspect of it is really, I think, needs to be retained. So that facility has a 2-year lifespan that started on April 12th, right around 6 p.m., if anybody's counting. So we don't even have a year and a half left on our ability to use that. It can be expanded by city council if that's what there is to do. And we know that the Loveland Resource Center is inappropriate and inadequate for all of the reasons that Dan stated. That is not lost on anybody. We knew that going in. We looked at whether or not we could actually make changes to the building. In fact, we looked at whether or not we could make changes to the building before the encampment ban. We did that, four or 5 years ago. It's privately owned, and the city, based on city charter, I think, we can't make alterations to a private owner's building under just any circumstances. I'm not getting that entirely right. So we're unable to make changes, and so we are looking at, if not this place, the Loveland Resource Center and the South Railroad facility, then where? So the first step in that conversation is all about zoning. If we were to put some sort of a facility in another location, where can it be? And people are going to have really strong opinions about that, and City Council is going to start talking about it in a week, and that's very exciting. Another thing is, in our code, we don't have anything in our code that speaks to a homeless shelter, so we're going to start that. And then, in my opinion, the next appropriate conversation is to talk with people who are currently experiencing homelessness and find out what's needed and wanted. What would a location look like that would have you want to go there? What is needed inside of a facility that would have you want to stay there? And not just overnight, but if maybe during the day. I've long been advocating for karaoke, and I still don't have it.
Danielle has a machine. You can borrow it.
I think that
How about
karaoke.
the fire pit?
I can see some potential problems with a fire pit. I can also see some problems with karaoke, though.
Which one's more dangerous?
Karaoke.
Right.
I think that in my heart, it needs to be a place where when people are there, they have an opportunity to relax, to truly relax. When we completed the point-in-time homeless count last January at the Loveland Resource Center, we provided bingo and pizza. And people said it's the first time they'd had fun in a long, long time. I think that reducing cortisol levels in people's bodies, I think that creating a space that helps people get to a place where they can move to the next step is important. So we're not surprised by anything Daniel would say.
Oh, I'm sure not.
In that the Loveland Resource Center is not great.
Can I ask you a question? So the visions and the goals that you see that are necessary and wanted are fantastic, but that takes a long time, right? So what do you do in the meantime to support the community?
Do you mean to get to a new facility could take a long time? Yeah, that's a good question, and I have a lot of ideas, but I don't.
Some of them? Tell
someplace
us.
else. Maybe I don't.
Or what is necessary, even?
Yeah. So what's necessary is a facility that will allow a minimum of 75 people to sleep night after night. That is open enough hours of the day, enough days of the week to support people. We don't currently have that.
Yeah.
We don't have, it's since we started this, we started hiring people in June of 2022, and we're still not fully staffed.
What does a full staff look like numbers-wise?
Let's see, hold on, I can do this. 19, 18, 17, 16, 17, 18 people, I believe.
Wow, it's taken that long to hire.
Yeah, and the work is not for everybody.
Right.
The work is for people who appreciate human beings and can have the space for what's happening in somebody's life if it doesn't look like their own.
Yeah.
So we have 2 positions that we're interviewing for on Friday.
Cool.
And once those are hired, we will be fully staffed and we can look at what else do we need, which is.
Daniel,
additional
do you have a
beds.
question?
I do. That's very interesting that what you were just speaking on are those positions, are they being advertised, or the people in the shelters, because there's no more compassion than someone that's in the very situation to address those issues on a very familiar level. So I was wondering if they qualified, if the information is even being passed on to those individuals that even something like this exists. And then a second piece was, I'm sure, I'm not speaking, this is just from an outside perspective, but has the city of Loveland spoken to the professionals in Fort Collins about their structure of services and their shelter and the size and all those things?
All of it.
All, yeah.
Yeah, so in response to your first question, we do require that somebody is housed for a year before they can apply for a job. And in regard to your second, there isn't anything that we do in Loveland that doesn't also include all of Larimer County and all of Weld County. So the area is called our continuum of care. It's called the Northern Colorado Continuum of Care. There are 4 in Colorado. There's Denver Metro, there's Pikes Peak, which is El Paso County, Colorado Springs, there's Northern Colorado, Larimer and Weld County, and then there's one called the Balance of State, which is everybody else. The only reason that's important is because that's our data collection area. We have grants that are continuum of care based. All of the work we do with all of our partners regionally.
Can I ask why you would require somebody to be housed for a year before being able to apply?
There's a couple of reasons, and it reminds me when we were talking about community service, now I remember the answer. We do everything we're doing is data driven. So you have access to private and confidential information about somebody. And if you are living at the shelter, it's possible that information could get out. It's, like your confidential information that you trust us to keep confidential. We want people to be removed from the situation so that...
So what if they are unhoused but not at that facility?
That's a really good question.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I am aware of the case in Fort Collins where a gentleman was sleeping in his car and working for a service provider.
Yeah.
So our hesitancy is to have somebody who is a current guest
Okay.
then become an employee.
How do you feel about that, Dan?
I've asked a lot within a month that I got there because I don't really, these people, I put out there the perception that I care about certain people. Mainly, I don't care about myself. That's one of my problems. I would love to have their standards lowered, within 3 months to 6 months, because there's a lot of times that I've answered questions that a staff member that's new, because they've got quite a few new ones that I've been there a lot longer than them, and I can answer the questions that somebody else has, 5 or 10 times better than the actual staff, and sometimes they even do turn to me. So that would be nice. That was another issue that I was gonna point out.
Yeah, please.
There's quite a few people over there. Myself, she actually has firsthand experience with. Wouldn't mind if those standards got lowered so we could get hired. Some of this advocacy thing that I was talking about, Charlie and I kind of threw around this idea of possibly that being a paid position through the city to be an advocate between everybody, the services, the residents, the staff.
Yeah, James?
Question, it's unknowledge that I'm asking to get the knowledge.
Okay.
The tent set up there, you sleep overnight, you're not allowed to stay there during the day though, right?
No, that would be another issue that.
So think of it this
I would
way.
change.
It kind of bugs me when I heard about this. I invite you to stay at my house, but then I kick you out at 9 in the morning, go on the street, you can come back at 8, but right now you gotta leave. In the middle of the winter, I don't get it. So,
It's 7 a.m., right, that you have to be out of there?
So I'm going to explain that.
Yeah.
When we first started that, Sandra and I talked about wanting a structure where people could be during the day. We don't have the staff to keep it open during the day. So that's a primary driver of this. We don't have the staff to keep it open during the day.
Do you have the funds available to you if you could find staff?
No,
Okay.
not at this point.
Okay.
So when we first started this endeavor, I think we started out with $500,000. You know, I mean, it's just, we didn't know what we were getting into.
Yeah.
At some point, as city staff, we have to say, I mean, we're given our instruction, if you will, basically from city council on down. And so with every city program or anything that happens at the city, we work within a budget.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And so we don't have like just an open checkbook.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do think that putting more money into something that has the potential to only be open for 2 years could be a mistake.
Right.
But I understand the desire to have it open during the day. One other thing about that, it's not necessarily easy to get there. And I don't mean the geographic location within the city. I mean there's a hill,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so not everybody can get there. So if we are going to keep one location open, it's going to be a place that doesn't have a hill.
Right, right. Or close to transportation or, you know, something like that, yeah.
I think sometimes that hill's pretty handy for me because I have a storage located right at the bottom of the hill.
Well, there you go.
And I coast on my bike. At first when I got my bike and I had that storage, it was a little bit tough, but there's some days where I put 20 miles on my bike. Going all over, you know, to the north side, to this place, the House of Neighborly Services. It's an awesome place. I probably would be even more down on my luck if it wasn't for that place. All residents should be able to utilize those guys, and they should. They can, I think.
But all these resources are spread out
Yes.
all over the city.
Yeah.
You know, and have a central location would, I mean, I think Kat spoke a lot about that, you know, this throughout the year. And it just makes sense. It seems logical.
And so as
I know it's not easy, but.
Well, yeah, and things take time, and as we move forward, our goal is to have centralized services, food, housing, clothing, etc. So other work that Sandra's been doing is that all of the partners who are key in this will have an opportunity to co-locate.
Yeah.
The shelter manager, Dylan Cruz, has done a really good job of having service providers come in to the Loveland Resource Center, which has very little space, so that people who want access to services can get access to services.
Yeah.
There's one thing I want to do. Can I give some numbers?
Of course.
Okay. So with everything that we're doing, and even before the city started working at the Loveland Resource Center, and before we put together, can you see if that's shelter? I'm on call.
Speaking of.
Well, I mean, it's my son who didn't go to school. No. I'm just
George, put the camera on. She's going to answer Allison's phone.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm not kidding. So our goal is housing focused.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2016, we started what is called coordinated entry in Northern Colorado. We have an acronym for everything. It's CAHPS, C-A-H-P-S, Coordinated Assessment and Housing Placement System. It's a system that is mandated by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in order to get any money. Our coordinated entry system is incredibly robust. In 2016, we got training where they handed us a packet, and it's like, basically, here's how you end homelessness. And I thought, well, that seems so convenient. I have no idea, but people have been doing that work for so long. So in 2016, we started coordinated entry for veterans, and in that time, we've housed 577, which is 90%. And this is Larimer and Weld County. In 2017, we added non-veteran adults, and we've housed 598, 50, and again, this is Larimer and Weld County, 51%. And then the next year we added families, we've housed 519, which is 82%. When we get to a point where we have fewer people entering a system that is becoming homeless than exiting, we have reached what is called functional zero, which is as close as you'll ever get to saying you've ended homelessness. There are communities, many communities that have reached functional zero for veterans. There are communities that have reached functional zero for people who are considered chronic homeless, for all forms of homelessness. And so it's something that can actually be done, and that's truly our focus. We know that shelter is a short-term solution. It is not the end solution. The end solution has to be housing so that people can be taken care of. Like, I could have listened to you all night, Shane, which means that I need to sit and listen to you. I have a lot of questions. You know, that's the goal. That's the recovery. It isn't a shelter. A shelter is a short-term solution.
Can I ask a question? Are you done? I
Mhm.
didn't mean to
Yep,
interrupt.
yep.
Okay. I just want to address, there's a lot of rumors and things about why people are unhoused here, right? We hear things about them being bussed in from different areas. People being busted from different
Thousands at a time.
thousands at a time. And I couldn't prove or disprove that. I don't know the answer, but I would love for either of you who are a lot closer than I am to just address the validity of that.
I'm assuming she pushed the microphone in front of me, so I can't hear. But as far as I know, there is not people being bussed. I know for a fact that certain shelters have closed in, I'm not going to say exactly the towns, but 15 miles that way, maybe 40 miles this way, 15 miles this way. They migrated, for some reason, they've migrated to Loveland because Loveland is awesome. The people that run the shelter, I think, are awesome. The place is actually really, really great. Some of the issues that I have with it is just, it just needs a little finer tune, just in my eyes. But that's what I call it, a finer tune. But it's actually a lot. And I would love to be able to help these guys, being from the inside, seeing it from the inside. But not only to help the city council. Like I said, law enforcement is another one. I don't know if anybody has any experience with Officer Harris. He is like the, street advocate for the law enforcement. People with fire and rescue. I'd love to work with everybody. All the services.
It sounds
these
like
guys.
you are.
Unofficially I am. Because even for the people, like I was saying, I put 20 miles on my bike. There's somebody that says, hey, can you run the Safeway for me? Because it'll take them in their walker or their wheelchair 20 to 30 minutes just to get there. I can haul ass from 137 South Lincoln to where Safeway is at in 5 minutes and be back with whatever they need, cigarettes. I usually don't buy anybody beer because I don't drink anymore. But anything, food, whatever.
And I'm going to give Sandra's answer as well, which is, if they are being bussed here, if people are coming here, they're not using our services.
Okay.
And she does work to understand the numbers that will be presented next week, and has done a deeper dive twice into where people are coming from. In fact, she did some work months and months and months ago, and narrowed it down to, well, here are all the people who are new in our data system, and then cross-reference them with people who had been here from point-in-time counts, or who were on a manual list from shelter from the year before, and it came down to, I think it was 6 people who were from out of area. 3 people, we didn't know where the 3 of the people came from, because the truth is they didn't know where they were from.
Right.
And the other 3 were 2 from one place and 1 from another, Longmont and Denver, as I recall.
I just want to say with that deep dive, that's not what the data designed for, so there's a lot of inference being made with that data. And I always give the example, if you were to ask, my dad, who's lived in Colorado for more than 50 years, he would say he's from Oklahoma. So that
Right.
is a very subjective data point, and if we tend to focus on how to keep people out of the services that we're providing, that is the wrong focus.
Mhm.
The focus is
100%,
to absolutely
yes.
make
Yeah.
certain that we have a system that supports people to leave homelessness. When we don't have a system, that's when there's a problem.
Yep.
And she did that extra work, and it took a long time.
And it
In
will-
order,
Oh, I'm sure.
in order to dispel the myth, though, because it isn't a new myth,
No.
and it's not going to go away necessarily, and it's not something, that's not the kind of work that our data system can do. It took a long time for her to do that in order to dispel that myth.
Olivia?
I was a little bit late, so I don't know if you've already talked about this. But Allison, does your department do any training for our police officers? You know, you've got a population that lives daily in the mode of fight or flight, right? Which means your adrenaline is up here at all times. And so when police officers encounter homeless people, you know, for whatever reason, you're dealing with someone whose adrenaline level is already up here. You know, they have food insecurity, housing insecurity, all kinds of insecurity. Am I gonna get busted? Am I gonna get asked to move? Where am I gonna sleep? So they're here, right? And then you have officers that are like throwing their things into the lake or what have you, or just losing their patience, or just not helping them at all. So do you talk to the police officers? Do you train them? What happens?
We don't train them. We do know that LPD has some officers that have engaged in training.
Why isn't that mandatory? I mean, it's gross, the things they do and don't do, what they ignore. Someone laying on the ground, maybe breathing, not breathing, right?
Mhm.
And like another drunk, which is like, what? You're a first responder.
So some of the officers went to training in Fort Collins, like Olinsky and, is there any Heidi? There was like 3 officers that went to Fort Collins or to Florida for 3 weeks
Yeah,
and got trained.
Was that voluntary or mandatory?
voluntary.
I think it's
Voluntary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Sergeant Osilka. So we do know that there are some, and I don't actually know, because I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But I do know that some of them have engaged in training.
Yeah, so I think that's a real problem. And, you know, if one officer tells you one thing, and then an officer that has had 0 training tells you something else, it's very confusing. You can't stand there and tell an officer who's been trained, well, so-and-so told me this. Like, well, tough shit, because I'm
Yeah.
telling you this.
I do think that, I do know that Sergeant Osilka is using the information that he's gathered both through his training and through just being boots on the ground, as Officer Harris is. And they are both exceptional. And I know that there are others as well, because we encounter them. We are their favorite stop, as noted by the numbers. So we know that there are some excellent officers who love to come visit us.
Did you have a question, Shane? You raised your hand?
It was just a statement.
Okay.
I was really wishing that Representative Weinberg would have stayed around
Yeah.
to hear that myth dispelled and also stay present for the rest of this.
Maybe next time.
Maybe next time.
George has a question.
I've got a question. In some ways, it seems like you're preaching to the choir here, which is a wonderful thing, because you've got folks that are interested in hearing this. But by the same token, I've heard enough at city council meetings where the unhoused are pariahs that need to be removed from here because they're affecting business.
Yep.
And so we've got this polarization in this community where instead of seeing we are one of them, they are one of us, they are being portrayed, the unhoused are being portrayed as the enemy that needs to be removed. It's dangerous.
Exactly.
So if that's the case, are you seeing any movement in a change of perceptions?
Yes,
Okay, would you?
daily, inch by inch.
Okay, tell us
So,
about it.
I recently spoke to the Sartoma Club, and Representative Weinberg is a member of that, and that was about 2 weeks ago. I believe that we need an all-of-the-above approach. So, in a week, maybe, the St. Valentine Apartments will open, and that took maybe 2 weeks, sometime soon. Like, we're in the last 90%. And that took 7 years. And it is incredible. And it's going to house
Yeah, can you explain what that is?
54 people. So the St. Valentine Apartment Project was started in actually 2016 through just conversations of, wouldn't it be great if we had some supportive housing? Supportive housing is made available to people who have high barriers to housing. So in 2018, Archdiocesan Housing said, we'll build it for you. In 2019, we looked at some land and that didn't work. In 2020, we looked at other land and that did work, got support from City Council. In 2021, they applied for tax credits to get the equity to build it. They broke ground in August of 2022 and it'll be finished shortly this month. And the first group of people will move in. So I think that that by itself changed some hearts and minds. One of the next on the all of the above is having shelter that's adequate and appropriate, whatever that looks like, and we have no idea yet. But even having those conversations around shelter, like even with how inadequate it is, it's been an incredible opportunity to engage in conversations about what it means to shelter people. And that's very valuable. The next will be street outreach. So the City of Loveland will spend our opioid funding, and we received another grant from the Division of Housing to start street outreach. So we'll put out an RFP. And what that will do is help businesses, and it will help people who are on the streets who are, to use a common term, service resistant. Like maybe they don't spend time at the Loveland Resource Center accessing services from the providers that are there. So providers will go to them because, again, you need to meet people where they are. And if where they are is literally outside, then you need to go outside. So we'll have an adequate and appropriate shelter, we'll have supportive housing, we'll have street outreach, and I feel like there's 4. What's the other one I'm missing?
We're also working on community education.
And community education.
Oh, yeah.
And that's Homeward Alliance doing that work. It's slow. I mean, it's slow, but you know, these are conversations that not everybody is engaging in all the time. And there's a lot of misconceptions and a lot of information that you can't have easy access to. I certainly don't. I frequently say it's an Alice in Wonderland world. Things are not ever as they seem.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of questions that I've never had answered. I don't need to have them answered to move forward in the work, though. Doug?
Allison, would you tie the school district no-hold shelter into that as well?
The youth shelter.
No, I did not, so thank you. Yeah, so having a youth shelter, right now, the closest one is in Boulder. Thank you for that reminder. That's a miracle, and that's in Loveland.
Yeah,
That's
awesome.
incredible.
Yep. And I mean, I just glanced at Aaron, and it made me think that a lot of what the city engages in, and even the community conversation and what's out in the ether here, starts at the top down and trickles down, right? And I feel like when there are changes in progression in city leadership, that we can start to have new ideas and new perspectives. And I feel like somebody like Erin and Kat's a leader in this community. People like that, you know, set a tone and set a standard that this is what we need to do and makes your work and your work.
And I would say that's like one of the, I don't know if anybody else here is representing or lives in Ward 3. She campaigned over there before she got elected. And that was one of the main reasons why I voted for Erin. Because she did come out there and talk to us.
Yeah.
And her and I kind of saw on the same level. And,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to say, if anybody else, voted for her, congrats, because I did.
Now, I do want to say that the work starts, like you said, top down. The work has started from every angle.
Yeah.
So we started it, there were people, I joined in 2016 to do some real work around coordinated entry. People were already doing that work. Volunteers of America, they were already housing homeless veterans. The Veterans Administration, they were already doing that work. Servant's Heart, they were already, going out on the streets. So people joined from wherever they joined, regardless of that hierarchy. And we brought people along. So sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was painful. I still think that that's the case. If it's a business owner who is, I met a business owner whose business is near King's Crossing, and he said, I want you to convince me about what you're saying. And I said, I'm not going to, because I believe what you're saying. Because his experience was that he had some very, very serious issues happen to him, and he was right. And they shouldn't happen to our businesses. We can't survive without our businesses. So we need to take care of the businesses. We need to take care of people, and that's an all of the above approach.
Yeah.
But you have to take care of the criminals. There's a difference between someone who is unhoused and someone who is unhoused and a criminal. And that just gets all lumped together, and that's the problem with people that have their offices by Safeway over here and what have you, that bitch and moan and complain every single time, right? They just lump everybody together. All Indians walk in a straight line, at least the one I saw did.
Public education.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, like Sandra said, community education. Yeah. What will that look like, Sandra? Do you mind?
We're working with a subcommittee of the homelessness task force to flesh that out. There's been talk about bringing back Loveland Connect, which was an event that the Community Partnership Office ran for quite some time. Similar events happen in other cities around our northern Colorado region. And then also working with our different partners and making sure that all of our nonprofits are communicating the same way about the importance of things. Not that everyone has the same goals, right? There are different things that obviously different nonprofit partners are working towards, but that overarching goal of joining together to actually move the needle rather than providing a siloed approach to how things are addressed.
Yeah. Jess?
Yeah, I'm here to professors here, thank you. And I'm wondering how, speaking of businesses and whatnot, how the Chamber of Commerce, is there any conversation going on there about businesses? Is there a relationship or a conversation happening between the city and the Chamber?
Yes.
I'm putting you on the spot, I'm sorry.
Yes, there's lots of conversation around it, and we follow much of what Allison does, and we stay connected with the Fort Collins folks, their whole program, because they're doing various things there. It's a key topic of conversation regularly. Does that help?
Yeah, I was just curious how, since we get the business
No head
community
in
and
the
all those
sand.
different things.
Yeah.
The business.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions?
Can I add to that really quick? If
Yeah.
you don't mind? Bill, if you don't mind, so how would you define the overall consensus of the folks involved with the chamber regarding this specific issue?
You gotta realize there's 700 members, And while the majority of those are smaller businesses, a main part of our attention is working with Sean in the downtown scene, since that's where much of the focus is. We know there's no easy fix to any of this. We're watching the dynamics, and we're seeking to learn what may work in other locations that could be applied to Loveland's situation. And I'm not an expert in any of this, but every community is different. And there are parts of the community where we hear serious horror stories. And there are other parts of the community where it's just not a big issue. And so it's a big umbrella that we find ourselves working with. But to my earlier point, it is regularly a part of the conversation. There's no head in the sand on any of this. If that helps. I mean, we don't have answers.
Thank you.
But
And if I could tag on to what you said, Bill, too, it's not that was kind of a very broad question. So sometimes I think the question for all of our community members is, how do you feel about providing services to homelessness versus how are you are impacted by the inadequacy of our current facilities? And that is two very different conversations that are being blended. And so just keeping that in mind too, because that does not mean that all businesses are anti-providing services to people who need them. That just means that we do not have a solution that is adequate for our community. And it's all a numbers game. As Loveland has grown, the homeless population will grow. It's just numbers. And that's all it is.
Anyone else? Do you have any closing thoughts, Dan?
I do actually.
Go for it.
There's a couple other things. Yes, housing is going to help. And just to let everybody know, I am one of the people on that list that hopefully, hopefully I get one of the first 10 in there. But not only is with housing, I've been doing a lot of just homework, I call it, on my own. Seeing what, I don't know if you guys know or have seen what the homeless population has done to the city of LA, the city of Seattle, Kansas City, Missouri is another one. Basically what's going on here is just like a microcosm of everything else going on in all those cities. And those cities are millions and millions of people. Hundreds, almost, I think they said almost 100,000, close to 100,000 homeless people in some of those cities. Do we want that here? I know you guys don't. I know people in the city council don't. Me, that I am a resident here of Loveland, I definitely wouldn't want to see it get that bad. And it's ugly, or it was ugly. But not only is housing going to help, and I've seen it here, and I've been a part of it, mental health, addiction, stuff, you know, everybody has all three of those, maybe one of them, maybe one or the other, combination of both, or even others. But not only housing, but some of those other, and there are services right down the street at the Sunrise Clinic. A lot of these people don't know about it, or they don't want to go. I've used it. That's now where my primary care physician is at.
Awesome.
I have gone to therapy there with Corey Turner. She's awesome. It's another place that's over there, one of the other services that I wish there was a member of them, NCHA, Northern Colorado Health Alliance. They are also located in that building. And there's, I'm not sure what Hans's last name is, but there's Hans, Jody, Corey, and 20 other people that are part of that, and you know, they help a lot.
Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Hi. First of all, I apologize for being late. My name is Antoinette. I am Director of Operations for North Recovery Alliance. We provide peer support services to anyone struggling with trauma, mental health, addiction. We're certified recovery coaches, certified peer support specialists, and I didn't know if it was already covered because we walked in a few minutes late. But I was going to ask, you know, I love we have to, you know, tackle it at the root of the problem, like with homelessness, but once we get them there, then what? So
that's where we could come in and help and offer our services, because that's huge. Like, I've struggled with addiction myself. I've been to treatment. I'm in the halfway house. I've been sober, and I help all my peers. So thinking about that as the next step, we definitely have a lot of resources for that as well.
Thank you.
I'd probably say that's, that could be considered the next step, but I think all three of those together, maybe even one more, would definitely, instead of just homeless, instead of just housing people, instead of just helping them with their mental problems, instead of just helping them with their addiction, help with all of them at the same time. All of the above, and probably even a couple other ones.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm Danielle North, I am CEO and founder of North Recovery Alliance, and so I just wanted to say that we provide outreach. So we are out there, on the street, we are engaging on that level. We are funded by Medicaid, we're paid for our services through Medicaid for 8 hours of outreach per client. That's just a one-time billable thing, so we can go out there and the whole idea is to engage them into services. And so at that point, we're not providing any type of clinical treatment, but if they choose to at some point, we offer biosocial and a diagnosis and a roadmap to their individual success. So I just wanted to say, because you said you needed, the need was for, for outreach. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Two more minutes, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna sneak it in.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Kat.
It's been something that I repeat over and over again, but public bathrooms. Going more into more detail of it, speaking to Sean of downtown, and understanding, downtown businesses are upset, people are going to the bathroom on the streets, understandable, but where can we go to the bathrooms? There's many times I'm downtown, I need a place to go to the bathroom, and I may not want to buy a cup of coffee every time I need to go to the bathroom. Exactly. So with all these things, talking to Sean, his thing is employees. There's not enough employees to take care of the bathrooms that we do have. We do have public bathrooms that are at the Foundry. They're always closed. I want to know, what relationship are we starting to create with Chambers, with downtown DDA, with where do you get to go to the bathroom? Because I don't know of a public bathroom. And why are we not opening Chilson to certain days of showers and locker rooms? Is that something that would start taking care of those basic survival needs that we can start collaborating with? Because the Chilson's with the city.
That was a lot.
She's a lot, isn't she?
So, I agree, I don't necessarily agree with the showers.
Certain days.
I mean, the shower at the LRC is really bad. The showers at the SRF are not bad. They're good, but not everybody can get there.
And I would still shower at either one of them because
Right? It's a shower.
nobody can't go without a shower.
That's true. You also can't go without a bathroom, and I don't have an easy answer for that. We've looked at a couple of different things as soon as COVID hit. We put two portalettes on right by the sports station, primarily because the community kitchen had to close their doors to in-person dining. So we had that there. I don't remember how long, a couple years, I think.
Has the downtown reached out to open up that bathroom downtown?
You mean the Foundry?
At the Foundry.
I can answer that one.
Yeah.
I actually have a personal relationship with somebody that works for this company called Brinkman that actually has to take care of doing it on the streets, and now he knows. The reason that they close it down, some of these people, I don't know what's wrong with them, but they trash that place.
I have heard that.
So
yes.
they have closed it down. It's a rumor that I heard from somebody about something else, and I won't bring that up, but it belongs with the benches around there. The bathrooms down at the park, down over here, those got trashed. Even the porta-johns that they put out there, they get fucked up by these guys. Few.
Well, is there any verifiable fact that it is the unhoused community doing all this? Like, because I can think of a whole lot of other.
I can tell you for a fact, some of that vandalism is younger kids.
Yeah,
I've been at
exactly.
that park late at night, riding my bike around, because like she was saying, you know, sometimes I don't stay there. Then it's to get out of there. One of the shelters, you can only just stay right there inside. So I take off and I'll go ride on my bike. And I have seen tons, a lot of the spray paint. Makes it look like it's gang tagging. I can tell you it's just dumb, stupid kids, and I've actually seen them. Not gonna say get into any racial things, but I've seen some black kids over there, white kids, Mexican kids, Asian kids, and all the races.
Just
and I'm not
kids.
gonna tell you exactly who is actually doing this, but I have seen them, all of them.
So shutting down bathrooms has been the solution. They get vandalized, they shut them down. Are they handing out poop bags? Are
No.
they handing out standing urinals?
One thing that I can tell you that the city has.
Do those exist?
They are. They're
Yeah.
rolled up,
They
they're
do.
paper, you can stand up and pee.
Yep. Go girl.
One thing I've told everybody over here is the city has done it, but it's a sign about this big, sitting up high on a pole, I believe half a block down, that says where there are public bathrooms. One of them is the Foundry, one of them is the library. We can utilize the bathrooms at the museum. Safeway is courteous enough to let a lot of people go in there one at a time. You have to ask them to unlock it. You have to leave your backpacks outside. But, you know, and then there's a couple other businesses that I've actually just snuck in and used them, you know. But there's a few places around here that nobody knows about. And that little tiny sign that's on this pole, I've taken a picture of it and I've shown it to people. And they're like, we've never seen that. You got to look up about 15 feet up in the air and actually happen to see it.
Thank you.
But there are a few places that, you know, I wish that place at the Foundry didn't have to do that, but it got trashed, just like all the other ones.
Last one.
One of the things that the Service Art does to help out with the bathroom situation is we have had a lot of ladies come in and ask if we can provide them with boys' pants and Depends. So we keep that on hand.
Awesome.
And now we've just started carrying the men's Depends because they don't want to get a ticket for using the bathroom in public.
Right.
And so we do keep our Depends on hand.
Yeah. Thank you for everything you do.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question. When it comes to the voucher program, housing voucher, I mean, California, you brought up California, it takes 13 years for one housing voucher to become available. It's like the housing law.
Yeah.
And it's starting to get pretty bad around here too. You know, it's, I mean, we're seeing year, 2 years. So my question is, does anybody have the answer to why a housing voucher just continues to make them a renter and not a homeowner? Because this voucher, I mean, with the way that rent is right now, I mean, if you get a $2,100 voucher for a 2-bedroom apartment and you're, part of the homeless population, you probably don't have a career or something that's going to put you in a position to where you're going to set higher goals that you're going to be trying to meet outside this $2,100 voucher. They sit on them and they, end up renting for the rest of their lives or until they do something that subsequently makes them lose that voucher. But what if we had something in place to where we had maybe like Clayton Homes, they're involved in mental health, in helping to cure this situation, the problem that they have a $56,000 3-bedroom modular, and these vouchers can pay off that modular in 2 or 3 years. Why not make them a homeowner and free that voucher up for somebody else to come along and use it, as opposed to just letting them sit on it and rent for the rest of their life?
So you can turn a Section 8 housing voucher, a housing choice voucher, into homeownership. That exists. It exists within the federal government. It's not as simple as that, because if you, so I'm going to give the knowledge that I had about this 10 years ago. Our housing authority used to do that. The programs are very, very difficult. So if you have a 30-year mortgage, even if it's $56,000, right, So the voucher is going to pay a certain portion of the mortgage for a certain period of time, and then the buyer is then responsible. So it might be 10 years, it might be less. So the voucher, and I don't think it's 100% of that payment. So if you had, so that would take a variety of providers. So it would take a perfect storm of somebody who's building and providing a home for $56,000, which is getting cut off, which is incredibly difficult to do, and especially with, so you've got to have the right building codes, you have to have the right land, you have to put in a foundation, you've got all the fees, you have to have, it would be an incredible feat. It would take multiple types of providers to pull that off. It's not a bad idea, but the Housing Authority quit doing that some time ago with their housing choice vouchers because it is a very difficult program to run.
What if there was a case where, so my brother Ryan owns North & Co. in Scottsdale, Arizona, the #1 real estate agent there, and what if there was something like that came into play where there was an investor that was willing to build out, let's say a 35-acre community or something, with a fixed foundation, and all that criteria was met, but he chose to let that voucher pay off the modular home, and then what he chooses to do with it as far as a donation is up to him.
I don't think you can use the voucher to pay it off.
Well,
You guys will have to.
Yeah, we're over.
We're over. Sorry, but no, those are like you got to think outside the box,
That's
right?
true.
You got to like.
Rent it. I'm just saying
Yeah.
the voucher rent the place until his mortgage,
Yeah.
his mortgage is paid off, and then he can do what he wants with
It's a
that
great
place.
idea.
Yeah.
It's a really good. I misunderstood. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Dan. I really appreciate it. Allison, always. Thank you, Loveland boys. Thank you, Black and Blues.